If you are using Pool Brain to send your invoices, it's wonderful. So many automated features that make your life easier, keeping your QuickBooks up to date. But there's one thing that you might have to do a workaround. Well, I know you have to do a workaround. And I get this question a lot from my clients. Hey, how do I book this in QuickBooks? How do I move it out of the bank deposit? How do I move it out of undeposited funds? So here's how. So first of all, let's set the scene. If you're in Pool Brain and you create an invoice and then you mark it paid in Pool Brain, or they paid online with their credit card, great. Everything syncs perfectly if your settings are right. And it goes into QuickBooks, it creates that invoice, it creates the payment against it, and then you see it sitting here in the bank deposit waiting to be matched with when the money actually hits your bank account. Okay, easy. But if in Pool Brain, for some reason, something happened, which is always going to happen, that you need to provide a credit to a customer, something went wrong, they overpaid, and you're going to apply that credit to their next invoice, whatever those reasons are, then on the Pool Brain side, it's very easy. You just apply an account credit, and you can choose to apply it to the next generated invoice or however you want to. So that side's very easy. But due to the system software and how it syncs to QuickBooks, it's going to document it as a payment or an adjustment credit, as you see right here besides my head bubble. It says adjustment credit, and it's sitting there in undeposited funds. So how do you get it out of there? How do you reconcile that? That's the piece I'm going to show you. This is a common question I get from a lot of clients. Maybe there's another way to do it, but this is the way that I do it, at least with the current software system syncing between the two systems. So here we go. I'm going to take this bottom one that says $100, nice and easy to remember, and show you what I do. So in the QuickBooks side, what the syncing and the system software between Pool Brain and QuickBooks did is it created a payment for that credit, which is $100, but that's actually not a payment. It's an adjustment credit. So here's how I cleanly my workaround for fixing that. So it removes it from undeposited funds in the right way, and it applies the credit. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to look at that unapplied payment, because this credit has not been applied to another invoice yet. So I'm going to do two examples. This one is an account credit has not been applied to another invoice at this point in time. So I'm going to click New, create a credit memo. In the credit memo, I'm going to make sure that the customer is the customer up at the top, which it should be, and whatever I'm crediting them for. So I'm just going to make it up for now, but it would be whatever was on the invoice where you said, hey, I'm going to give you a credit if it matches that, or there's a reason. Okay, now the next step that we've created that credit memo, you'll notice that there's the payment that Pool Brain created automatically, or the automation did. And this is the credit that we manually made a second ago. So I'm going to copy this information and add it to the credit memo, and we'll show you the next step. So the first thing we need to do is move that information over to here, and then we will delete the payment that was automatically created. Now, a quick tip is that if you copy paste that information in the bottom box, that's going to show up in a way that's easy for you to look at, just like you saw it on the payment. So that's what we're going to do, and then we will save and close. Now you can see that same note is on the credit memo, and since this payment or credit have not been applied to any invoices, at this point we can simply use the drop down and delete. And the reason you want to delete is because if you delete an invoice or payment in QuickBooks, it will not delete it in Pool Brain, and that's what we want. Because the way that the Pool Brain system works, it's going to, you want the functionality, that account, a credit, to stay there. So we're just going to delete on the QuickBooks side and then leave the credit memo. And once the next invoice is generated, then we will be able to apply this credit memo to that invoice on the QuickBooks side. Okay, so I'm just going to simply do the delete so it doesn't do an automation in the other one. But before I did, I noticed wait, I forgot to update the date of the credit memo. So after I delete this, I'm going to go back to the credit memo and date it 6/20/25 so it matches the account credit in Pool Brain. Okay, we're all set. So I went back into the credit memo. I changed the date to the same date that the account credit is showing in Pool Brain. And now we see that there is an open balance, meaning a negative 100 that will be applied to the next invoice. Okay, that's a straight ahead one. That's pretty easy. Now let's go do one where there was a partial account credit or an account credit that only part of it was applied to an invoice. That's just slightly trickier, but we'll go take a look. I do want to let you know that now we've made this change. It has moved it out of the bank deposit. So I will show you that before we do the next one. All right, and there you have it. If you remember from looking at the bank deposit, or you can rewind this video to go look, that originally there was $100 here with an adjustment credit, and that is now disappeared because of what I just showed you that we did. All right, now let's do one that is an account credit that's applied to an invoice, either in full or partial. Okay, this is the next easiest one in line, and it's the amount of $87.50. So even without knowing names, we can see what happened here. So an invoice was created in Pool Brain, and move this a little bit. The invoice was created in Pool Brain, and it was paid probably to a credit card on file, whatever it was. And then we see that somebody went, oops, we should not have charged that because we should have just taken care of it, and we should not have charged their card. So therefore, we called the customer and we are going to apply that credit to their next invoice, right? So in this case, we need to create the credit memo again, and we need to do the same process we did before. For the first step is going to be creating a credit memo. So I'll click credit memo. I'm also going to look at the original invoice. I'm going to see what that payment was for and apply it to that same product, because then you're going to see, because you're always looking at your reports to go, hey, how much money, how much income did I receive for this particular type of work? And if you are giving a credit back, and especially if it's like hourly rate, in this case, it's hourly labor. So we want to apply the credit to the hourly labor so that we truly are, I want an honest reflection of exactly what happened. You did receive $87.50 for hourly labor, but then you gave an account credit. So basically you're giving it back, and that's reducing income for hourly labor. So that's why it's important to add that. So I'll show you what I mean on the credit memo. So the date, so here we are on the credit memo. So the date of the credit that was provided was on 6/25. So we're going to date it with the same date shown in Pool Brain so that you can cross, see that, oh yeah, this is the same thing. We're going to put in hourly rate because that's what was on the invoice that was $87.50. And I believe this was for half an hour, which makes it the $87.50. So for that reason, it's all good to go. And I'm going to do a save and close, and then I'll go back and I will delete, not void, delete, because if you void, it's going to void it over in Pool Brain. So you want to delete the payment and keep the credit memo to be applied to the next invoice. And we're back. And so now you see that we have a credit memo and we have a payment that are dated on the same date. I once again forgot to copy paste that. So I'm going to copy this and then paste it on the credit memo. And then I will be deleting, not voiding, deleting this payment so that what is in Pool Brain stays there and isn't touched. Okay, now that I have the memo on the credit, this memo on the credit memo where I can see it, now I will click the delete button for the payment. It's going to give you a warning. Good idea to have a warning, but we know it's going to work and it's the right thing. So I'm going to go ahead and delete. Okay, the next example, example 3, is when an account credit has been created for a customer in Pool Brain and applied to an invoice. So in this scenario, there was an invoice created for hourly labor, And then for whatever reason, the company decided, hey, we really shouldn't charge for that. So I'm going to apply a credit to your next invoice. So I kind of wanted to take a moment now that we did the first two steps that you can see what it looks like. And it's always good after you do these actions in QuickBooks to come back over to Pool Brain and just double check that nothing went weird, that you didn't accidentally void or delete something on the Pool Brain side. But that is why you want to do the delete rather than editing a payment. So far, we're so good. So here's the next one in line. There's an account credit of $131.25, but this time it has been applied to an invoice. So we want to take a look and see which invoice it was applied to, because that makes a difference on what we're going to do in QuickBooks. Okay, so in QuickBooks, I found the invoice that was applied to in Pool Brain and then located it in QuickBooks. And of course, I don't want to give away customer names and addresses and so forth. So you have to use a little imagination, but this is pretty normal because of the great notes that they put in Pool Brain. They automatically came over. So we know that this payment for that $131.25 is the account credit, which was applied to, from looking this up in Pool Brain, it was applied to this $150 invoice, which again was hourly labor. So I'm going to create a credit memo. That would be step one for this $131.25 for the same date with the same memo. So I start by doing the drop down, clicking credit memo, and then dating everything from here. This time I'm going to learn from my past mistakes and grab this information before I create the credit memo. All right, so here we go. We're going to put in hourly rate. I believe it was 0.75, but I might be remembering that from something else. Nope, that's it. So 0.75 makes it $131.25, and that's what they're going to, the account credit was for. So I'm saved that memo. So I'm going to copy paste it there from the payment that's also listed in Pool Brain, so you can tie it together, and save and close. Okay, now that the credit memo has been created, it's dated the same date as the payment. So we see the $131.25, the $131.25. We see the same message, but the payment was applied to an invoice because that's what the automation did. But what we really want to apply is a credit memo. So here's the part that's different from what you've seen before when it's already been applied to an invoice. So the first thing that I will do is I'm going to disconnect this payment from that invoice. Oh, and in order to do so, I click the View Edit button on that payment. Now, just note that this is, remember the whole point of the thing is that in the bank deposit, we see adjustment credit for this customer in undeposited funds, and we need to move it out of undeposited funds because it's truly not money you received that's waiting to be deposited. It's an account credit. So here's what we do. We're going to uncheck the invoice that this payment is attached to, and we're going to delete this payment. And I know this sounds like, oh, should I do that? But yes, trust me. So, but first of all, double check that you have unchecked the invoice so it's not attached to anything. And then you can click on the More button and click Delete. And now I get to do the final step. The final step is now that that payment has been unattached, detached from the invoice, a credit memo is sitting here waiting to be applied. Now the invoice, let me restate that. The payment that we just deleted was applied to this invoice. When we detached it, disconnected it by unchecking it, and then deleted the payment, now it says, oh, I need money for this. So now this is how we're going to apply the credit to that invoice by clicking Receive Payment and then applying that credit. So I'll show you what that looks like. And now we have it. So right here, we're going to, here's the invoice, sorry, stuttering over my words. Here's the invoice. This is going to be $0 because we're not adding a payment. We're not receiving payment. We're applying this credit that already exists for $131.25. That was the open balance, $131.25, and that equals 0. So once I click Save and Close, those will be tied together, and now it's a direct reflection of what's going on in Pool Brain. Now, that particular adjustment credit is no longer sitting in the bank deposit. It's no longer in undeposited funds. And now you can see that the invoice for $150 is now marked paid again. And this credit of $131.25 was applied to this $150. And so we're all good. And that's how you clean it up. Now, one more step might be if it was an account credit that only covered part of an invoice. It's the same process. You're just going to end up matching a payment and a credit memo to one invoice to close it out. Again, everything's a direct reflection of what's going on in Pool Brain, but unfortunately for account credits, you have to do this workaround on the QuickBooks side. Okay, you got it. Hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. My name is Sharon Birch, Pool Service QuickBooks.